Hello and welcome to Herein Lies the Peace of God in the Awakening Together Sanctuary. The Awakening Together Sanctuary is an assembly of equals joined in common purpose, awakening to one true self. Within an appearance of many faiths, many cultures, and many symbols, we seek to discern one truth and to rest in its embrace. The host of Herein Lies the Peace of God is Reverend Jacquelyn and Eckert, the President and Minister of Awakening Together. Our co-host is your favorite anarchist preacher, Reverend Glen Ganaway, integral scholar. A Course in Miracles says this about discerning one truth. Nothing real can be threatened. Nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God.
Sing glory, glory, hallelujah. How wonderful thy holy name. Now I can see with God's own vision, and I see peace instead of pain. Yes, I see peace instead of pain. I can see peace instead of pain. Amen.
Okay, very good.
There we go. Bless your heart. I was going to ask again. But so I ran across A Course in Miracles in high school in a fairly conservative Southern Baptist church. Ran across it in whatever ways I was doing. But I wasn't at that point in my life. I was going off to college, and I just got kicked out of the church, or I was left the church, or the church left me. However we could tell that story. I didn't want to listen to anything else Jesus had to say. Jesus was done. Jesus was the past. You just said Jesus to me, and I'm like moving in the other direction. Thank you very much. For a good long time. I've always been interested. I'm one of those people like that are like a junkie for spiritual experience. Have you ever met those people who go from retreat to 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 retreat? They're always reading well, it could be a good thing. It's not necessarily a bad thing. I don't want to disparage away, but it's like it's always looking for the next spiritual high. I've been on that trip before, always looking for the next thing. And I took that in all the different levels that you could possibly take it to, because in the 80s, I became a hustler and a junkie in Kansas City, and used to walk the streets of Main Street in Kansas City and sell my little 18-year-old self on the street of Kansas City for about 8 years in the 80s and stuff like that. It is amazing. I am still alive. And maybe in the course of this story, I'll tell you course of this program, maybe I'll tell you a few stories. But I got arrested for possession of a controlled substance and for soliciting, and I was given a choice about going to jail or going into rehab. I took the rehab because I did not want to be a queer boy, 20-year-old queer man in jail. I just think that was not a good thing to do. So I took the treatment, and I had a profound spiritual awakening with some folks that were in there. It was exactly what I need. It was the one of the first of many. But I think it's very true of a lot of us. If we begin to look at our spiritual CV, we can begin to dial back with the 20/20 hindsight and say, oh, that was when I turned the corner when I was in junior high. That was when I turned the corner when I was in high school. That was, you can look back into your spiritual CV and you can kind of see the turns where you wouldn't have necessarily seen them at the time. You can look back and say, oh, that was a realization. Oh, that was I matured. So I had a spiritual awakening. This one man said you could call God whatever you wanted to call it. You could call God whatever you wanted, but you just had to, you had to act on it. And when I said love, when I said, I think God for me is just going to be love, I transported like some other worldly place. Everything became light, and I was absolutely on a pink cloud for probably the next 6 months of my life. I'm sure I was completely insufferable because I was so happy and everything was perfect, absolutely perfect for about 6 months. And things declined, and I know you know about this as well, a pink cloud or whatever, but I still didn't get my own version of spirituality, my own spirituality. And that came really the permission to do my own inquiry, the permission to have my own relationship with God, the permission to have my own understanding and not wholesale carry somebody else's. Have you ever been like in a group where you have to toe the line? They give you a book and like you've got to toe every single thing on the line, like the group. You ever been to one of those groups before? I have. It's not fun when they're, so I wanted to have my own personal relationship with God, because it seemed to me that I was being offered a sale, like shirts or clothes or suits or something like that. It's a different kind of spirituality. Well, the radical fairies, when I met them in the 80s or 90s, when I met them in the 90s, really gave me an opportunity and the permission to explore my own authenticity. That authenticity led me to New York and Yolanda and revisiting A Course in Miracles. And it changed my life. It changed my life absolutely, probably more than any other thing in my life, except coming out and finding the love of my life, Yolanda. Probably the three biggest things of my life is coming out when I was 9 years old, finding Yolanda, and finding A Course in Miracles. There hasn't been a greater reward in my life, and other than being able to teach it 3 times a week now. I feel like I'm really doing what I'm supposed to be doing. But it wasn't until A Course in Miracles that I really felt like my spirituality was mine and something I was doing, rather than something I was performing for other people or trying to get approval from other people. And now I couldn't even have told you that until like a couple of years ago, that I was really performing as a good person, or trying to be a good person, or struggling to be seen as a good person. It's only been in the last couple of years or so in which I have a personal direction and very much a daily, moment by moment relationship with what I call God, what is, what a relationship with what is existing. So I found A Course in Miracles, and I read it 3 times in a row. I mean, the blue book, the volume that the ACIM.org does. I read this whole thing cover to cover 3 times in a row, back page, and then did that again. And then I began lecturing Yolanda 24/7, and lecturing and lecturing and lecturing. And she said, either you stop, you need to stop lecturing me, and you need to start teaching your own class. So we put out a little thing, and we were going to a sanctuary, a church called The Sanctuary. So I put up my little thing, and 20 people showed up. And I've been teaching. I've been teaching ever since. I've evolved. I used to put together a little booklet and put 10 pages, a handout. You ever been like college? You hand out the outline for the thing. You used to outline every chapter and do the section and do the summary and do extra reading and references and I used to do that for every week, and I would hand out a little 15-page booklet every week for the class, and I did that for like 5 or 6 years. So it's like I'm so over. It's like I'm just like completely like right-brained overkill. but that's how I learned. See, I felt like I had permission to do it how I could absorb it. I don't recommend any things, but I do recommend that each of us, or that we can give ourselves permission to approach what is valuable to us, we find value in, the way that we can approach it. For one thing, I like to use recipes when I cook, for example. Yolanda doesn't use recipes. She's grabbing and moving and everything like that. I'm using a recipe, So she cooks by doing, by feeling, and by everything like that. I don't. I cook by a little bit by rote, and a little bit by experiment, and making sure that, the relationships for this and that, and I measure and everything like that. She doesn't do any of that. Both of us are good cooks, but we cook very, very, very differently, But if they're both good, I don't think there's a right way to do A Course in Miracles. I don't think there's a right way to be spiritual. Because I don't, I'm still learning about what that is, what that is for me. But that's how I got here. I mean, in between, I found NTI and did this pretty much the same exact thing. Opened it, page 1, and just read it. I think I read it twice through first, and then about next year I read it again. So I've read the Course in Miracles probably about 10, 15 times. I probably only read NTI about 4 or 5. So so that's theirs. But it's mine. It's absolutely something that is me. I identify with that voice that's in the Course in Miracles. I identify as the writer more than the person. Today, I identify as more as the person speaking than the person being spoken to. Maybe that's arrogance on my part, but that's where I am right now, and maybe it'll switch and maybe it'll go back. But I'm not in charge of trying to make sure that I'm on somebody's grid in a certain way. See, that's my thing. I keep dialing back. What are they going to think? What are they going to do with this information? How is this going to affect my ability to connect with somebody like that? And that's what stops the connection, not me telling the truth or something like that. Because I want you to know where I'm coming from. So you can say, oh, do you know where this doesn't line up? So I can be so I can be held accountable, and I'm transparent. That's how I want to learn and grow. And I think A Course in Miracles is really good about that, because she says, your brother, 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 which is like you're in a relationship, we're in this relationship. But so I like that. So, and that's what this class is, the classes that I've done, that's kind of how I conduct those classes, is it's like, let's figure this out together, and that's why this class is so important, or this discussion is important to me, because learning how to do this with others is how I change faster. I can change I can change and grow and love and stuff all by myself, because I'm not actually alone. You're not alone and friendless, right? We know this. But I'll tell you what, you guys put gasoline on the fire. You guys put the enlightenment on steroids. This, our community and getting together and doing this actually supports the awakening, my awakening, and the awakening of the world. And I wouldn't be anywhere else.
It's lovely. Thank you, Glenn. That was gorgeous. Yeah. So I think I'm more like Yolanda. So we should do fine together. Yeah. I really appreciate, though, Glenn, your ability to bring heart to your organization. You've got all these things organized, but you have a real heart. I joined in a program, one of the classes that Glenn teaches, the other night, and I just told him that I was so impressed with his ability to hear what people were really saying, and then to bring that back to show them how what they were saying fit within the principles of what was being taught. And I just think that's a real talent. So I appreciate your ability to do that. So where do you think we should go from here, Glenn?
Well, one of the things that people say to me, he goes, "Oh, so you're a Course in Miracles teacher, so I've tried to read the Course in Miracles and it's too hard, and the language is really weird, that's why there's so many versions of A Course in Miracles, right? You can get a version that's like all gender neutral now, you know that you can get one where all the grammar's cleaned up, so it's like back down to like 8th grade grammar rather than like 11th or 12th grade grammar. So where was I going with this? What I think
probably going to make fun of me.
There you go.
Oh, you were probably going to make fun of me because I think I shared with you yesterday that I that I had written, and I did find it today. I had written a glossary in 2015, and you're like, oh, that's like the Jefferson Bible, right? Where you just throw out the stuff you don't like. And but let me say in regard to that, I felt the need to do that because for me, A Course in Miracles felt stilted, and it was all couched in these very Christian terms. And of course, I grew up Christian, but they felt limited. Mm-hmm. Forgiveness, atonement, guilt, Holy Spirit, judgment, all of that just felt like it came with a lot of baggage. And I have, for some time now, said that seems very unfortunate to me, that you would bring this beautiful message, this true message, but it would be in these terms that can be very heavy, depending on who the reader is, given the history of the Christian church. So anyway, I appreciate the opportunity, and I don't think we'll get into that tonight. Maybe when we do the clarification of terms, but I appreciate the opportunity to share my own clarification of terms.
I think that's a great idea. I think that's a great idea because I do that as I do this. So like so starting with the terms, what is often happens is you throw somebody into A Course in Miracles. Go to A Course in Miracles group, and they do like what you just said. Everybody gets around a table and they read a paragraph in A Course in Miracles. You get 25 opinions, and then you read the next paragraph and you get another 25 opinions.
Yeah.
It can be useful. I'm not saying that isn't a useful study group. It's one that's been tried and true. And but I always say when people say, where should I start with A Course in Miracles? And I often say, start with the teacher's manual. Start with the clarification of terms and start with the teacher's manual, because that's going to give you a little bit of a scaffolding or a framework to make the bridge from all these assumptions that you're making that you think you know what she means when she says forgiveness. Right. Probably not. If you're just now coming to the Course in Miracles, you think you might know what atonement is based on your good Southern Baptist upbringing. If you're like me, I know what atonement is. I know what forgiveness is. They put nails in that man's thing and they tortured him to death so that I could go live with Jesus forever. I know what forgiveness is. But see, it's all of that I think is why the Course in Miracles is written this way. And I think this is going to actually be one of our continual themes, Jackie, is to say, why is she saying it this way? Why is she going all the way around the barn to make this point? Well, it's because that's how I think this book is, if hermeneutically speaking, who is it wrote it, who is it writing it to, and what are the times in which it was written? I think she is speaking directly to this, you and me, this Western mind that is completely swimming in, Judeo-Catholic, Christian, Judeo-Islamic, the children of the book, the children of Abraham. I think we're all swimming in these metaphors, in these ideas, and she speaks and she rides along those connections in our brains and rewires a lot of the damage that we unconsciously are doing to ourselves in this society. you know.
Yeah, and that's something that we talk about a lot here in Awakening Together is this idea of rewiring the brain,
Oh, really?
making new pathways. And again, you and I had talked recently about having had that experience of having those pathways changed, and not just by thinking differently. For me, I had real experiences where it really felt like somebody just reached in there and went, and you could, very interesting experience of that. Now, since that time, and that seemed to come early on after I dedicated myself to this path, that, tinkering up here somehow. And I think that really, you talk about a teacher's manual giving you a framework. I think there was some real physical stuff going on with me that gave me the framework, gave me the ability to clear out some of all that stuff that had blocked my ability to hear what was being shared, and gave me a foundation on which to start this journey for real.
And the combination for me of growing up, deep in the Baptist church. My dad's a Southern Baptist preacher. I was raised to be a preacher. I am deeply steeped in the history of the Protestant church in America. My dad went to St. Paul's Theology in Kansas City. We ended up being appointed by Carter to be the chaplain for Bethesda Medical Center. And then he did the psychological and religious theater for the first Iraq War, and was in NATO as part of that, the NATO first theater term in Iraq. That's who my dad was. That's the family I grew up in. I grew up in gated military communities, and everybody snapping to attention when my father walked into a room, and everybody knowing exactly who I was wherever I went in the world, because my dad was the commander and he was the chaplain on base, and everybody knew who I was. So this idea of being looked at, being observed, people taking notes on my behavior, never having anything that was mine, always under scrutiny, is kind of how I only knew of existence, is from this outside looking, this gaze, to try to manage the outside gaze. You see what I mean? And Course in Miracles gave me a really good way to turn that into an outshining light, rather than one that was trying to reflect appropriately the picture that I thought that I was projecting onto them, that I thought they were projecting onto me, so that I could be. It's just ridiculous. I wanted to be safe, so I needed to find out what you were thinking of me, so that I could imitate. I could perform in a way that you would like me, so that I could get what I wanted, so that you'd like me, so that I could get, what I wanted in this endless, thing.
Yeah, but Glenn, I don't think. It may have been more pronounced in your situation, but I don't think that that's unusual.
No.
I think that's how, people operate in the world.
Yeah.
Tell me what you want me to be, and that's how I'll show up.
And it's encouraged. I tell that story is because I didn't even know it was happening. It's just what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to please you're supposed to please your mom and dad. You're supposed to please your peers and your teachers and the world. And for me, that's a recipe for disaster, because especially in seeking approval from other, and it's a misplaced way that the Course really speaks of directly, because you make all these poor decisions because you don't know who you are. If I knew who I was, I wouldn't be trying to get you to confirm that I'm okay. I'm totally living and performing to get positive feedback, so that I don't feel crappy about myself, so that I can feel like I'm going to have a connection I can rely on in the future. It's very, very human. you know?
Yeah, I think so. And it strikes me and has struck me in the past that it's very interesting that both ego and Holy Spirit or inner wisdom encourage us to ask the same question: Who am I? And ego, boy, is ego happy to supply you with the answer. Inner wisdom will supply that answer as well, but not at that frenetic pace that we get from ego. And it will be right. Inner wisdom has the right answer.
And it's been so joyous for me to really do the experiment, to really just let go of what I think my life is supposed to be like. Because as you know, I'm a planner, I'm a Taurus, I manage pensions for a living, I'm a spreadsheet jockey. I'm an Excel spreadsheet jockey during the day in which I manage pension benefits for first responders. So it's lovely. It's lovely, but that's the kind of mind I have. For a living, I balance a $3.5 million checkbook. You have to put in in one sentence. I have to keep a $3.5 million checkbook balance every day and every month and things like that. So it's very meticulous, know a million little things stuff. But of course, Miracles is not like that at all. It goes against all of that. It says, are you willing to believe and act on who you really are? It's the most profound thing and controversial thing that I have discovered in A Course in Miracles is that she asks you not to think about the past. And we're doing that lesson right now that I think I see only the past, right? That was today's lesson. She ends the year with another lesson on time. So it's this time idea in A Course in Miracles is huge, because we think again that time is real, and it's not. So this direct experience and the time and the grows me in an organic way that is actually making me happy, because people say, "Oh my God, how did you find this? How did you do this? You got we bought some land this year in Vermont. It just fell into our lap. Now we have been planning on buying some land. We've been planning on this for 10 years and paying off our debts and being financially responsible so that we can have what we need, but it came to us years ahead of schedule in a way that we couldn't possibly have imagined, inside of a COVID, just for taxes, with the infrastructure. And it's just on and on and on. I couldn't have thought of everything that this piece solved. There's somebody looking for this land that knows more about what's going to make me happy than me.
And we could, and that's true for all of us and in every circumstance.
Right.
Yes.
Right. So that has to always be true. So what do I want to live like? Do I want to live in a way in which I have to understand everything, know what's coming down the pike, be able to completely comfortable with the horizon, be able to be psychic enough to know what everybody is thinking of me and be okay and be able to absorb all of that? I really don't want to spend my life doing that, because I know it's exhausting. Because I know
we've tried.
I used to shoot up. I got tracks up and down my arms. The nurse, I can't give blood because I go to the blood people and they go, those are tracks. You can't, you can't give blood. You have tracks. You can't give blood.
It's amazing. Yeah.
So it's not, it's to live from and trust. How do you get to live and trust from a completely real and organic space within yourself? And of course, Miracles she calls that the inner altar where you go to meet God.
That's very poetic.
Yeah, it's very poetic. She's very poetic. So it's how can I live from me as opposed to live with so many considerations for a million different things that could possibly happen? I can't think of all the things that could possibly happen.
Well, and of course, the real answer to your question is baby steps.
Yeah,
One tiny step at a time.
yeah. Do it. Yeah. And that's the hardest thing for my students that I say is you're gonna make mistakes. You're gonna get your feelings hurt, and you're gonna go out on a limb, and you're gonna learn. You're gonna fall, you're gonna make mistakes. But hurry up and do them. Hurry up and find out where you're wrong. Hurry up and like fall on your face, and hopefully you've got some good friends around you that will help you up. But hurry up and fall down often and quickly in the beginning.
Yolanda, did you want to say something? Oh, I thought you were. I saw you raise your hand.
You're so kind. So that's been the hardest thing to get, is the willingness to be wrong. And the Course in Miracles has been really helpful with that. She goes, if I'm angry, I hope I have been wrong.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I realized, frankly, just after I said baby steps, that really that's the essential ingredient, the willingness. And it includes the willingness to be wrong about everything that I think has meaning, everything that I think has value.
Yeah. I can change my mind. If I find out something better, I do not lament 1 second on, worrying about all the things that happened because I participated in it when I was ignorant, because it's.
Yeah. Or even, that's not what I said last week.
Oh, I know. Something. Well, you saw this in the program or the class the other day. One of the things I say a lot is time is the measurement of things that decay. I've been saying that for as long as I can remember. One person in the class said, "Oh my God!" It's like, and I have said that like, a lot. So I have been that person. I have been that person who was needed to hear it, like, or in so many different ways, to hear it again in the right thing, and then suddenly it goes, and it slips together, right. And the next thing is able to happen. That's the idea of time. Time is how I measure change, but change is only the measure of what isn't real. So it's, do I want to be in the real world, or do we want to be about monitoring or measuring change and call my happiness some measure about how quickly or something? I didn't used to see it as a useless journey, but I see it today as a useless,
Yeah. And that's well put. Now it's what I was trying to say a while ago. Actually, when it dawned on me that all of the journeys that I had been on were useless journeys, that's when a real change came about for me.
Mm-hmm. Do you read the Course every year, Jacquelyn?
Oh no, I haven't. No, no, I don't. I do not. And I know you do, because you teach it that way, right?
Yeah. I teach it. I teach it that way, and I learn something different every year. Mm-hmm. Every year sort of has a different. And this has come from doing, not from anything I've managed to do it myself, and I'm probably reinventing the wheel at some point in some things, because I'm not the first person to have studied A Course in Miracles for 10 years, so. But this is how it's working for me. So, yeah, I've done everything I know to get it in me to do. I read it every year because it changes every year. I have a friend who's a 12-step person who says, somebody's been rewriting the blue book again. That's right. Rewriting the big book again, because I went to the meeting and they heard stuff that I'd never heard before. I'm 40 years sober. I didn't hear this stuff before, so. You really can't hear it until you have a place to hear it. You just don't. Well,
and that's been my experience as well. And that's my understanding of what Jesus meant when he said, with those who have
Yeah,
ears
those
to hear,
have
let
ears
them
to hear.
hear. Yeah.
I know. And there are a whole bunch of different layers, and we've talked about a few of them. There's like the surface layer that you have to be willing to you have to be willing to deal with her vocabulary and her love of Elizabethan iambic pentameter poetry. Okay. If you want to get, one of the ways that you can get a handle on iambic pentameter is go read the sonnets of Shakespeare. That will help you read A Course in Miracles better. Just say it. Because the King James version is the version that she imitates in her languages. The languaging she's languaging is his reminiscent of the King James version. As we know, Shakespeare and the King James, the translation of the King James version were happening at the same time. And that was the popular style of writing. So and her love of that, is, and that we hear Shakespearean language, we hear the sonnets, we hear the King James version, and for whatever reason, we go, that's the truth.
It resonates.
That's the King James version. You don't mess with the King James version. Well, actually, you do. It's written according to a political agenda, just like the first 66 books of the Bible were done by political agenda. So it's, certainly it's there.
Oh. Glenn, should we talk about, before we go tonight, should we talk about where we're going?
Yeah. Like I said, I think we should go through a discussion of the introduction and the clarification of terms. So we can say, so what are all these things that they're also called themes of A Course in Miracles. You could talk about the big themes of A Course in Miracles. And I'd also kind of like to go through the teacher's manual, because it asks things like, what is the ego? And what is forgiveness? And what is reincarnation? And all those things. It's like, and the introduction is really fun. I've already started looking at the introduction and making some notes. She is, I think she's a hoot. I think Helen and Jesus are a great writing partner. Yolanda, you didn't get to see a dramatic reading, but very often in the class, I'll ask Yolanda, because she's the actress, to do a dramatic reading, and Helen and Jesus get really snarky sometimes. Just get really like in your face, like you could practically do RuPaul voice over some of the passages in A Course in Miracles, because they are so arch. They're just really, really arch. So that's what I'd like to talk about. I'd like to talk about the terms, the terms, and like what is the framework? Why is A Course in Miracles such, an impactful book? And how does it structure it? How can we use it as a tool? And while remaining, keeping it sacred, but not untouchable.
Right.
Because I love Nisargadatta. He's Nisargadatta. I love Ramana Maharshi. I've read I've read everything I could get my hands on. I'm not saying I've read every single thing they've all done, but I've read what I could get my hands on for both of those guys.
Well, and I appreciate you making that point, because it's important to me that we look at what we're learning in A Course in Miracles from a non-dual perspective. Yeah. That we bring that to it as well, and like you said, and like the Course says, let go of this course. So I think it will be helpful. I think it can be helpful to see how the Course synthesizes with these other truth teachings.
Yay, because I'm an integralist. I've got one of those really super rare philosophy degrees. I have a master's in integral theory. Won't tell you what that is. I'll let you do your little Google searches. It's really, really obscure. But it's about comparing different systems and how they all line up. So I absolutely love that. And I'd like us to have kind of an overall oeuvre of living in the real world. Like I am sitting in my living room. This is not a backdrop. This is me sitting in my living room. I'm going to bring you stories from my life. I'm not going to couch anything in a way that I'm trying to get you to like me or to understand. I want to share I want to share what I understand with you. And if that's, a problematic or you have questions, ask. I really don't have any secrets,
No, but you have a very big vocabulary. You just said oeuvre, which is a word I don't think I've ever heard. A while ago, you said harmonics, maybe?
Hermeneutics.
Yeah, that's it.
Hermeneutics is just, it's a way of saying, when you get a book, it's like Jane Austen. Like when was Jane Austen? Who was Jane Austen? Who wrote it? Who was she writing to? Who did she was trying to sell the book to?
Okay.
And what was the times in which she was living? You can tap, all of those things are different. She's commenting on the times in which she's living to a certain amount of people, and she's coming from a particular perspective.
So it's context.
Yeah, simply put, one word, to use another word, you could
like
say
harmonics or something.
Hermeneutics. See,
Yeah.
And oeuvre is just personal perspective. So
say it again.
Oeuvre, it's French words for eye, oeuvre or Louvre.
Oh, very nice.
I know. Yeah, I also have a minor in French literature. So it's just
I'm not a bit surprised.
Ridiculous, just absolutely, if smart could get you into heaven, I would already be there. Yeah. Smart doesn't get you anywhere. Smart is heavy. Smart is no advantage. There's no advantage of being able to have a really good processor above your shoulders. It's not an advantage.
Well, and while we have just talked tonight, I think we also want this to be participatory.
Sure.
We want you to stop Glenn when he uses a big word and say, "Hey, what the heck did that mean?" Mm-hmm. But no, we really do. So I'll make that invitation now. Before we leave, we have just a couple of minutes before we go. But does anybody have anything that they want to share or say, "Hey, are y'all gonna talk about this?" or blah blah? I could give the question forever, and then y'all wouldn't have time to talk. Anybody have anything they want to say? Okay. All right, Glenn, I'm sure I interrupted you. So
no, this is great. I'm also a political junkie. I pay attention to politics. I pay close attention to politics. I know I pay so close attention to politics that all of my representatives know my face.
Oh my goodness.
That's how involved I am in local politics. Max Rose knows my face. Justin Brennan knows my face. Wow. All of my representatives. So I go to all the DSA. I go to the DSA club. I go to the PSL club. I go to the Democratic club. I organized and protested with Black Lives Matter. I organized the queer alternate parade march in New York. So I'm also coming from a very taking action in the world to create the world that you want to exist kind of thing. So that's I can't pull that out of. I could if you'd like me to, I probably could pull it back a little bit, but this A Course in Miracles has informed every single bit of my life, and it is what I do to be myself. It's how it has given me, just me. And I live with God. I live as that. And I can't be talked out. Can anybody talk you out of being Jacquelyn?
Gosh, I hope so.
Talked out of it?
I'm being silly. No, I mean, I some things fall away. Some things fall away when I see that they're not efficacious. that they no longer serve me. Those things fall away. And I presume that at some point, all of it will fall away.
All right.
We'll see.
Well, speaking of falling away, let's do this. Let things be exactly as they are.
Ellie, did you want to say something? You just waving bye to us. Either way. Bye.
Thanks, Sally. Thanks, everybody.
Love you all. Thank you all for being here.
You've been listening to Herein Lies the Peace of God with Reverend Jacquelyn Eckert and Reverend Glen Ganaway. To find out more about Jacquelyn and to donate to Awakening Together Sanctuary, go to www.awakening-together.org. To find out more about Glen and to donate to the Mighty Companions Ministries, go to www.glenganaway.com. That's GLENGANAWAY.com.